presentation, you are going to be hearing about Professor Levy's journey to law school and to being an attorney, and you're really, really going to enjoy it. And before turning it over to her, for those of you who are watching, you may not know this, but I am the pre-law advisor here at Post University. So for those who want to set their own path to law school, I encourage you to reach out to me. Let me give you my email. Okay, it's lilatimer@post.edu. So let me spell the first part out. So it's LILATIMER@post.edu. So, hopefully I will hear from you. I'd be happy to work with you. All right, and with that said, let us get started on this wonderful presentation by Professor Levy. Okay.
Thank you for having me. I really appreciate the opportunity to be here to talk to you all about something that is very, very dear to me, which is law school and preparing to go to law school or preparing to have a career in the legal profession. Not just because I went to Post, but now that I'm back here and I have students of my own here at the university, I'm really excited to be able to talk to you all about this. If everyone could just maybe, or a few people can just drop in the chat to make sure that you can see the slides, that would be really helpful. I just want to make sure everyone can see it. All right, so we've got confirmation then that we've got the slides, so I'll get ready to get going. Sure, that's fine. That one? Okay, alrighty. So now that we're ready to rock and roll, I think. Here?
So you're on camera.
So we're seeing her right where she is over there.
Okay.
So that's fine.
All right.
Thank you.
Okay.
Yes, you are.
All right, so I have a few slides that I want to go over, but where I would like to spend the most of my time and where I tend to spend the most of my time is on lived experience, kind of getting to share how I got to where I am now, because I think that that's the most helpful tip of all. But before I do that, what we're going to go into, I'll do a brief introduction, which Professor Latimer has so kindly done. So after that, we'll head into talking about, okay, what does it look like? If I'm deciding on whether I want to go to law school, if I'm not sure, what does that decision look like? How can you get there in making that decision? We'll talk about, if you've already decided, what comes next for you, and talk about some of the key tips for law school preparation. I also have a few slides with resources that you can utilize after this presentation to be able to look into these websites a little bit further if they're helpful for you. So a little bit about me. I did graduate from the illustrious Post University. I have my BS, my bachelor's degree in legal studies, and a paralegal studies certificate. Immediately after graduating, I went to law school. I went to North Carolina Central University, where I got my JD and a Justice in the Practice of Law certificate as well. And now that I'm a practicing attorney, I focus primarily in quite a few different areas in the time that I've been practicing as an attorney, but primarily criminal defense, post-conviction, juvenile law, and legal services for low-income families and communities. Those are the areas that I spend a lot of my time in. And as was mentioned, I also am an associate faculty member. So I've had family law and legal research courses that I'm always really happy to have and to be interacting with other students. So one of the most important things to know when it comes to law school preparation is that varied roads can lead to law school. There's no single path, according to the ABA, no single path that will prepare you for a legal education. That's a quote that I think is really resounding and has great impact in that it doesn't matter if you know, you started off and you were thinking, I'm gonna be a biology major or a history major or some other major, you can still go to law school if that's something that you'd like to pursue. So keep that in mind. On that same note, Prep Scholar prepared an article, and they have a lot of statistics on this about how it is that there's no single path that leads to law school. And so a part of their article and part of the study that they did, I believe in 2021, was that there are so many majors from which students come and apply to law school. Political science, psychology, criminal justice, English, history, economics, sociology, etc., to name a few. So what that tells you is there are people that fall all across the board of majors and different paths, and they still find their way to law school. So don't be deterred by what should my major be, what should I be doing in advance. Just know that varied roads can lead you to law school. I personally was a legal studies major. That was what I declared as my major when I started, because I was certain that law school was where I was heading, but not everybody's in the same ballpark, right? Some people start off and they're like, I'm not really sure what I want to do. So if your major or your minor right now is something that's not related to law, don't let that deter you from being able to go to law school. Is law school for me? So this is a big question, right? Getting into law school preparation. So part of how I answer this question is twofold. First, looking at some of the important skills, traits, and experiences that there are in a lawyer, right? And so when I went to post, Dr. Koblars, the honors program director, she was instrumental in helping me figure out what does it mean to be a lawyer. A lot of people say that they want to be a lawyer, or they want to go to law school, but what does that mean? What does a successful lawyer have as traits and characteristics? So here are some. Service orientation, public speaking, reading comprehension, critical thinking, learning strategies. These are some of the characteristics that are identified in leading attorneys. That's on career websites, that's, you know, it's heavily studied that these are some of the skills and characteristics that lawyers have. So, with that said, if you see some of these within yourself, you know, those can be things that you consider in deciding, is law school for me? In the same, these are additional skills or traits or experiences. These are from the ABA and some studies that they did. Research skills, writing, editing, exposure to the law, background knowledge. All of these can contribute to your decision of, is law school for me? This one's a little bit smaller, but after thinking about whether law school is for you, maybe you already know. Maybe you've already gone through this and you're like, all right, attorney Levy, we got it. We know that law school is for us. If you've already decided and you're on to the point of what's next, some of the tips that I have for you would be to start preparing early. You know, high school, getting together your transcripts, undergrad, looking at your trajectory in undergrad. Maybe your major is one of those that I listed. Maybe it's not. You know, maybe you are the biology major or the legal studies minor. What is going to be your steps throughout your educational path that will lead up to law school? Are you going to add some courses onto your current course load that are focused in legal studies? Are you going to try to maybe take on an internship with a law firm or with a government agency to get you some of that exposure? So start thinking about how you can prepare early for the decision that you're about to make. When it comes to choosing a law school, you know, focusing on and looking into what's the location of the school. Maybe Connecticut's home for you. Maybe it's not. If you are one of the online students and perhaps you are on the West Coast, what schools are available in your area? Are you looking to go somewhere else? Are you looking to travel? That's something that you can consider in choosing a law school. I am a Connecticut native, but oddly enough, I went down to North Carolina for law school and I had a great experience. question or? I went to North Carolina and it was a great experience. So consider the location of the school. Financial and life planning, this is a big one. This is one of those that I think we don't all really think about until after we're out of school. But how are you going to pay for law school? How are you going to pay for your legal education? It's an advanced degree, so it's postgraduate after you finish undergrad. How are you going to manage the workload that you have from law school? Start thinking about those early and factor those into the decision. Is law school for me? And if it is, what does that look like for me once I've decided that law school is for me? Career choices. A lot of times when we think about lawyers, we think about Law and Order, or How to Get Away with Murder, or different shows that we see on Netflix or other places. And you know, the similar trait that is there in all of those shows is that it happens in courtrooms and it's really exciting and nerve-wracking, but not every lawyer looks like that, right? So everyone's career path might be different even after law school. I currently am not in private practice. I work for the state, and so what that means is I'm not in a courtroom every day. I'm doing something different. I do a lot of research and writing, and that's important in the profession too. But start considering and start thinking about early. If you identify law school as something you want to do, what does that mean? What are you going to use your law degree to do? Building up your network. This is, I think, whether you're going to law school or anywhere else, having a network of people, of mentors, of instructors, friends, is very important, and it'll take you very far. So I have the opportunity now to be back in the same Eagle's Nest or back at the same university that I was for undergrad, and a lot of the opportunities that I've had came from my school, came from the network that I developed through being at school. The same can be said for my law school network. The same can be said for my professional network. So a lot of things happen from the people that you know and the people that you're surrounded by.
Looks like we have a question
Sure.
in the chat. What would you recommend for online students who do not have the opportunity for an internship?
So for online students, I would say a few things. First, if you have the opportunity in your area to do an internship, certainly take that opportunity. Just because you're not maybe in the radius of the university doesn't mean that there's not an opportunity around you in your local area to try to do an internship. The second thing that I would say is having or taking advantage of opportunities to go observe can be just as meaningful and just as helpful for getting experience as a full-time internship might be. So an example would be, and I say this all the time to my students, is all of us live somewhere, right? And there's probably a courthouse not too far away. How many of us have taken a chance to go to a courthouse and maybe just observe what goes on there? Or if there's a local law firm or a government agency around you and you show up on day one and you're like, hey, I'm interested in learning about the work that you do here. Can I do that? If the in-person opportunities are a challenge, you can also reach out online, right? COVID was very detrimental for a lot of people and we're still navigating it. But I think what we've learned is that there are a lot of online opportunities out there, virtual opportunities that you can take advantage of. That can look like researching a company, getting to know the work that they're doing. That can look like LinkedIn, reaching out to people on LinkedIn. I very frequently get invites or connection requests from people that are, from students that are in school, considering law school. They see me as an attorney and they say, hey, I'm not really sure how I'm gonna get where I'm going, but this is where I wanna go and I'd love to connect with you. So those are just some of the opportunities that I think are available, whether they're in person, in your area, or just solely online. You may also have the opportunity to do like a remote internship too, depending on the company or the firm. You know, the firm that I was with prior to my current position, we had a virtual intern who was instrumental in a lot of our transactional work. So the things that you didn't necessarily have to be in person or you didn't have to be full-time. We really valued that work, and that can get you some hands-on experience with the legal profession. I think that's another question.
Yep, the other one from Brianna is, do you have any comments regarding ABA-approved online law schools? And do you think that an in-person law school experience is necessary?
That's a really good question. And my response is, it depends. It depends on the person, it depends on what you're accustomed to. I was an in-person, full-time day student, so for me to go and transition to an online law school would have been very scary for me, and it would not have been attuned to what my learning style is or what it was then. That's not to say that it's not useful and it can't be done for someone who's identified that is helpful for them. Because I was a day student both in undergrad and in law school, I can't necessarily speak to what that experience would be like specifically, but there are ABA-approved online law schools that exist, or law programs. Similarly, there's evening school. So let's say that you work full-time and you're not really sure, you know law school is for you, but you're not really sure whether you can manage to not be working and go full-time during the day. Look into evening programs. You might be able to do an evening program. That's something that in deciding what law school you would look at, do they have an evening program? Do they have flexible nights and weekend programs? What does that look like for you and for your schedule? The American Bar Association, on their website, they also list the schools that are ABA approved. Each of the schools, both on like LSAC, for example, they list whether they're ABA approved or not.
I think we got one more question.
Okay.
How did you study for your LSAT? And did you take a year to study and then take the test, or did you study while you were still in school?
I studied while I was in school, which was challenging, but you know, I think similar to a lot of other students, there wasn't an opportunity, or there was not going to be an opportunity for me to take off a year or take off time to focus solely on the LSAT. And oftentimes what happens is you're in undergrad, you're deciding this is for me, or maybe you're in grad school already. You're deciding that you want to go to law school, you get the idea, and the next thing you know, you're like, oh, the next exam is 2 months away. I've got to hurry up and study and sit for the exam. So it doesn't always happen that you're able to take a whole year off from school or take time off to devote to that. So I did. I sat for the exam, I think in my sophomore year of college. I got my results in the spring of that same year, and then I was off to applying to schools around that same time. So it's possible to be done. In an ideal world, having time to take off to study would be great, but it doesn't always happen that way. The other part of the question was about how did I prepare? So I opted to take a preparation course. So I believe at the time it was Kaplan, which is still around, still doing law school, LSAT prep, and bar prep. I took the course, I paid to take the course, and I drove every Monday and Wednesday down to New Haven to take it at Yale because it was the closest in-person location. And they actually take all of the challenge out of it, or they did for me when I was studying, because the course they have books, they have practice tests, they have an instructor who helps you study and to prepare for what to expect on the exam. So that was my studying experience. I also was an athlete in college, so I did not have a lot of time on my hands. So that prep course was instrumental.
And then one more question is, when did you apply to law schools?
I applied, I believe it was within my junior year. No, rather, I'm sorry, at the end of my junior year, beginning of my senior year. And for each of the schools that you're applying to, and we're gonna, I have a portion in here in the presentation to talk about this as well, but the LSAC, which is the Law School Admissions Council website, I kind of referred to it a few times. That website is very helpful because it lists out the schools, what their application period is. You know, if you're trying to get in, if you're in your senior year and you're trying to get in for the fall, of 2023 or 2024, when you have to apply by, when decisions are made, and then you can use that to help you decide, all right, if I have to have my application in by the spring, if I want to get in for the fall, then that means I have to take my LSAT in the winter, which is before applications become due. So all of that information is going to be available on LSAC, which is the Law School Admissions Council website.
Looks like we do have one more. Is the LSAT still online, and do you think senior year is too late to try and test?
I don't think that it's too late to try and test, but again, it all depends on what your trajectory is, right? Like, when are you trying to go to law school? When does that school make decisions? Is taking the exam, say, in the wintertime, the fall of your senior year, is that going to be too late for you to then start attending in the fall of that next year after you graduate? So it's all dependent on what's your trajectory and what the schools that you're targeting when they close their admissions process. The other part of the question, I think, if you could repeat it, I'm sorry.
And is the LSAT still online?
So a portion of it is still online, the last that I checked. They used to do, when I was taking the exam, it was an in-person paper exam. You showed up, you had to bring your pencil and like one other thing. And you sat for the exam for about half day, and then you waited to get your results. Now what they have done is they've gone to a virtual option. During COVID, I believe it was that they were doing entirely virtual. Now they're doing it where you do the writing portion virtually, and you have the option to come in person to do the remainder of the LSAT.
And then, could you just touch upon the difference between the LSAT and the GRE?
Sure, you guys are on it with these questions. Like, most of the things that I have in the rest of these slides are exactly what you're asking. So I believe it was in 2022, the ABA put out an announcement that certain law schools were not going to be requiring the LSAT. And so what it meant for people like me and the people who have gone to law school before this takes effect is we're all looking around like, man, we have to take the LSAT, now they don't. But on a serious note, what it really meant is that there will be schools that do not require you to take the LSAT. With that said, you need to know whether and which schools that applies to. It has not taken effect yet for most schools, and I believe the last that I looked, it was 2024 or 2025 before it would be effective. So what that means is, if admissions to law school is happening for you before that takes effect, then you're going to need to still look at the LSAT. You're not going to be looking at just having your GRE unless the school that you're applying to currently accepts that. I saw something else pop up for a question, but.
You said I missed, what was the name of that update? I don't think that applies.
Okay, all right, well, maybe if the question comes again, we can take it from there. We touched on this part already as far as the slides about the admissions process. School-specific requirements are going to be key. Looking at and identifying what schools you want to go to is going to dictate when they close their admissions process. What do they require? Do they require the LSAT? Are they accepting the GRE? What score do you have to get on the LSAT to be within their prime admissions range? Those are all of the things to kind of think about and look at before you get into applications. So, the moment we've all been waiting for, other than those that I've already talked about, these are some of the tips that I put together, 6+ tips for law school preparation. So, first on my list, the biggest thing, the most important thing to me is getting a mentor. Look for people who are already in the profession. When I was a student, Professor Chepia, who was the program chair previously, rest in peace, he was a very great mentor for me. He helped me to identify and to really figure out, is law school for me? And if it is, where do I need to be going in my application process? So the things that I have figured out now and the things that I'm sharing with you, I didn't figure them out in isolation. I had a mentor, I had many mentors, I had professors who helped me get where I wanted to go. And a lot of them were people who were either in practice, so either practicing attorneys or my professors who are also attorneys. Talking with all of them was instrumental in me getting the information that I needed to get into law school and to succeed thereafter. The other tip, the second tip would be planning ahead and thinking ahead. This goes without saying, and I think it applies for things more than just law school preparation, but consider where you want to end up, right? What are your next steps going to be? Figure that out before you take them, if you can, right? But also recognize that sometimes you can't always plan ahead and you can't always think ahead. Sometimes things just pop up. So being nimble to those changes and working on the fly can be helpful too. Start thinking about who are going to be the authors of your letters of recommendation. Depending on the school, they might require anywhere from 1 to 4 or more letters of recommendation to be a part of your application. So does that mean professors? If you're an online student, how are you going to contact the professors that you currently have to write those letters for you? How can you have that one-on-one time with them so that they can get to know you better, so they can write a meaningful and a powerful letter of recommendation on your behalf? Law school visits, tours, exploring your financial options, and law school prep forums or seminars, take advantage of those. We had, and we still have, a lot of organizations at the university, like the constitutional law group or criminal justice group. All of those groups are really helpful because there were people around me who were also considering law school that I could bounce ideas off of and get to know where they're going or where they're thinking about going, where they were in the process. And then exploring career opportunities and options. Think about, do you want to be in the courtroom? Do you really want to be a lawyer? Think about all of those things before you get to the point of applying. The third tip would be to diversify yourself. So take different classes. If you are a psychology major, for example, and maybe you don't have a law or legal studies class on your path or on your goals right now, think about doing that, so that you can get some exposure, so you can weigh the idea of, is law school for me? And you can also start to learn some things about what law school will be like. Internships, experiences, I think we talked about those. I'll take more questions if there are any about those, but diversifying yourself will go a long way, not just because it'll help you in deciding, but when you're applying to schools, most schools want to see a well-rounded candidate. They want to see someone who has gotten opportunities or experiences that are law-related and unrelated to law to see what kind of person you are. Maintaining good grades is another tip that's always going to be high on the list. Joining a pre-law organization on campus or in your community. If you're not local to the Waterbury, Connecticut area, there very likely are schools and organizations happening right outside your front door that you may be able to take part in. Similarly, there may be online or virtual opportunities with like ABA. ABA has so many webinars and seminars that are free for students to attend, and you can go to those and learn about different areas of law school application process. There's a lot of information out there. And then my last tip before the bonus ones would be prepare for the LSAT or other admissions exam. So while we're in this in-between time frame where we're not sure if it's going to be the LSAT or if the GRE will become the prevailing exam for law school admissions, start taking the opportunity to really think about, how am I going to prepare? The questions came about law school prep courses, or if you're going to study on your own, start thinking about that in advance. Was there a question?
Yeah, that's a good question. So for an example, if someone did an internship with a law firm, can they get a letter of recommendation from one of the lawyers there?
You can ask. I did. One of my One of the 3 or 4 people that wrote recommendations on my behalf was someone that I did an internship, and I worked directly with her as her intern, and she wrote a great letter that translated to the school into what are my practical experiences, what hands-on experience did I get in the field before I got to law school, and it spoke a lot to who I am as a person and what my work ethic was like. So I think that can be a great avenue for getting a letter of recommendation. Is there another?
Good for now.
All right, so then my bonus tips for law school prep and beyond, pursue your passions, right? Pursue them responsibly, but pursue them because when law school becomes challenging, which it'll inevitably be, just like colleges, while you're pursuing your passion, that will take you a long way in helping you to stay the course with what you're doing. And then before law school, take care of you, take care of your loved ones. What I did right before law school is I went on a vacation. I went on a vacation, I took a break from undergrad, you know, I graduated and I was like, all right, I know where I'm going to school and I want to go just enjoy time with my family. And I did that and I'm thankful I did that because once law school gets going, it gets going. So take that opportunity to really self-care, care for the people that are around you before you make the decision on law school, and if you're going, before you start law school. So I wanted to open it up for, I mean, I know we got questions already, but I was gonna open it up if there were any more to share.
I actually have a question for you. You talked about preparation for the LSAT and you talked about taking a course, and that's wonderful. Can you speak to those students who might not have that opportunity for whatever reason to not be able to take a course, you know, that might have, maybe it's cost prohibitive or whatever the reason is. And then also, can you talk about the importance or lack thereof of LSAT scores and how many times they should be taking it and thinking about that?
Sure. Other options, if you're not, sorry. Okay. Other options for preparing for the LSAT that are not a course. So that was a really good point because cost can be somewhat prohibitive and time can also be prohibitive. So other options are, there are books. There are books available. If I recall, we have them in our library here at the school. And I know that there are other universities and law schools that have them that may be local to your community, but you can check those out and you can use those to help you prepare. So that's one option. For those of you who like having, you know, hard copy, paper, and putting pen to that, you can try that option, preparing on your own using books that you can either buy or take out on loan. Another option is online. There are additional self-driven prep courses. So I believe LSAT Max, Kaplan, Barbary, Themis, they all have, these are different companies or different organizations that have programs that are set up and geared towards LSAT prep. Some of them are free, and you can take advantage of those now to be starting practice tests, right? Like, we talk a lot about the LSAT, but how many of us really know what it looks like, right? Until you show up for the exam or you show up to prepare. So self-guided options are there online or in books, if that's something that you're interested in. There's also, check to see if there are waivers or scholarships for LSAT prep courses that may be available to you. So similar to like when you're applying to undergrad or law school, you know, we all kind of went through the scholarship and grant process where you look to see if you can get a scholarship or a grant, you apply for them. Maybe it's writing a paper on why you're interested in going to law school. That can take away, if cost is the barrier, that may be able to help you alleviate that burden as well, so that you can have access to the courses that are not free, but still have the preparation that you need.
And then the score and
The
how
score.
many times to
Sure.
continue.
So I was a very big proponent on, I am taking this exam once, and the score that I get, I'm going with. Which, I've learned a lot since then that I realized and I recognize that, okay, it worked out for me, but I can understand why that might not be the case for others. So schools have and they set out parameters of what their ideal range is for their LSAT, and that's gonna be, again, school specific. So for my people that are in Connecticut, UConn, you know, they might have their scores that are gonna be different than, say, Yale, which is also in Connecticut, but they have a different guideline and parameters. So taking that into consideration based on your school. Similarly, how many times to take it is also going to be school specific and also a personal choice. You do have to pay for the exam unless you get a waiver or some other funding that covers the cost of your LSAT exam. So that's something to take into consideration. You know, how much money, time, and energy do you have to commit to taking it multiple times? What I was told in the rule of thumb was like taking it 3 times and evaluating your scores at that point. That was the rule of thumb that I got. I don't know that there's a right or wrong answer on how many times to take it, other than your personal, you know, what options and resources you have to be able to take it multiple times. I think that's a really personal decision, but utilizing the information that is available from your schools, from the LSAC about what score they're looking for, I think can also help you in evaluating that. When you do start preparing for law school and you start taking practice exams, if there's a certain score that you know that you need to hit and you're not getting there after preparing, taking courses, that can be an opportunity for you to take a moment before you register for the next exam and to reflect. Okay, is this something that's feasible for me? Is it something I need to wait to do? So take that opportunity to look into what score the schools that you're looking at need, what the ranges are, and determine what that looks like for you. Was there another one?
No, you can just look straight into the camera.
Oh, okay, all right, cool.
And then it looks like we have 2 great questions.
Okay.
So the first one, can you compare the course load of undergrad compared to law school?
Sure. That's a good question.
Yeah.
So it's deceivingly similar. So there are about 12 credits are usually on a full-time law school course load. That's, you know, pretty traditional. When I was in law school, that's how many I had on most semesters, was 12 credits. But 12 credits is also very similar to the number of credits you probably have in a full course load for undergrad, unless you get approval to go over. But 12 credits in law school looks a lot different from 12 credits in undergrad. What I mean by that is, I was a very good student in undergrad, and when I got to law school, it was challenging because I'm like, all right, I can do this. I just went from undergrad, great student, I had 12 credits, I was playing way too many sports, and I had a lot of things going on, but still, it was a struggle because law school is a whole nother, it's just a whole nother experience, right? Like, I don't know if there's anything that really adequately prepares you to go to law school, because you're learning the law, you're learning to think, you're learning to analyze, you're learning all of the skills that make up a lawyer. And outside of law school and maybe an internship on a lesser scale, there's nowhere else that really gives you that same experience. So you learn skills that can translate to being good and doing well in law school through undergrad, through high school, through life experiences. But it's challenging to manage your course load from undergrad versus law school. Things that were really helpful for me though were I had a network of people, right? I had mentors that I could reach back and be like, I'm feeling really overwhelmed with my course load. Is this normal? How can I try to maneuver what I have as my course load? So I took very much advantage of the mentors that I had so that I could ask them about that. But I also use the resources at school. Often law schools have like success seminars that they require you to take in your first year of law school, or they have a complete division of the law school, similar to universities, that are focused on your success, right? So they'll have study aids, they'll have advisors that are there to help you walk through managing your course load. They'll help you with time management. They'll really help to meet you where you're at so that you can develop and that you can maintain your course load.
And then I know you said that the GRE might be the new test for law school. Do you know when that might change? And the person that's asking is wondering if they should still be studying for the LSAT.
So my understanding is right now, it is still the LSAT. That is still the prevailing exam. So the American Bar Association, ABA, is going to be the place that you want to monitor for when, what I discussed earlier, when the GRE may become an option. I don't know that that will completely eliminate the LSAT, but it is going to be an option for the schools that recognize maybe the GRE as their exam. If you're at the place, again, like the example I gave, where if you're in your junior, senior year and you're like getting ready to take the LSAT, reach out to the schools that you think will be on your radar and see, you know, you can ask them, you can ask admissions and say, are you guys anticipating accepting the GRE or the LSAT? Which one should I be doing? So those can be some good options on weighing, you know, where you're at, which exam to study for. But as of right now, LSAT is still the prevailing test.
Are there any courses in, like while you're an undergrad, that would give you a leg up in law school?
Writing classes, although legal writing is very different, it's a different style of writing, I found those to be very helpful. I also think like your traditional like introduction to law, or any of the classes that really go over some of the substantive areas, like I took family law when I was in school, or I took legal research. Each of those courses, I was able to take something from them that I then applied when I got to law school. So anything law related is probably going to be very helpful for you, but then your writing courses and, you know, your professional development courses are also going to be helpful too, because you're going to need to call upon those time management, your organizational skills, your writing skills when you get to law school.
Can you talk about the application process and what are some things that are included in that? From a career services perspective, we'd like to be able to help students with some of those.
Sure. So the applications are, again, school specific, they're a little different depending on where you go, but some of the components that are usually there are, where did you go to high school? Where did you go, or where are you attending undergrad? Getting your transcripts. I don't think that they usually require your high school kind of transcripts, they just ask for verification that you graduated high school. But after that, you'll need to have your transcripts from undergrad. We talked about letters of recommendation, you know, who's going to be writing those letters, depending on the school, will dictate how many letters you need. Beyond that, there were a lot of questions about like LSAT, right? Like, did you take the exam? When did you take it? Because they have to transport your score from LSAC, LSAC, who houses and keeps all of the LSAT, LSAT scores to be a part of your application. So those are some of the components that are a part of the application itself. Some schools do have, and my school was one of them, that had some like career readiness aspects. There's also a personal statement. So the personal statement is often talked about in kind of a fearful way, but I really encourage you to look at it as something that you take the opportunity to utilize and capitalize on. So a personal statement is a part of most law school applications that you have to articulate to the school something that you're interested in, why you're interested in law school. So that might look like researching, say, environmental law issue that's prevalent in your area and why that motivated you to go to law school. That could be an example of a personal statement. Or if you had an encounter with the legal system that you want to try to articulate into why you're interested in going to law school. There are a variety of topics that you can talk about in your personal statement, but that's a very big part of law school applications.
And it looks like we just got one. I'm starting my degree in legal studies, so when should I realistically be looking at to take my LSAT and applying to law school? If I want to go straight to law school after undergrad.
I would say in your sophomore and junior year is really when you gotta start mapping out the dates of your exam. But in terms of preparing, I think preparation has already started, right? Like, you're at the place now that you're like, I'm starting my legal education, you know, I'm in undergrad, what am I going to do as my next steps? You've already started the preparation, so congratulations for you. The next steps are gonna look towards where do you wanna go to school? Is law school for you? And if so, what do you need to get on the LSAT? What parts of the application, law school application are you gonna have to complete? So those can be the next steps in terms of preparation, but when you should, in my opinion, really be looking at sitting for the exam, getting your scores, and really solidifying this plan would be within your sophomore year.
And with that in mind, can you talk about the baseline LSAT score and the importance of maybe taking it to get an idea of where you fall, to know if you need to improve?
Sure. So I believe it's 120 is the lowest that you, well, I mean, you may be able to get a 0 on an LSAT, I don't know. But I think the lowest ranked score is usually in the 120s range. And then it goes all the way up to, I believe, 180. So somewhere in between there, most schools are gonna fall within the range. A lot of them, and you know, this is a few years since I've done this, right? So it might change, the ranges might change, but when I was applying, it was about a 145 to like a 165. It was about that 20-point range or radius that you wanted to fall somewhere within. The sweet spot, I guess you could say, for LSAT scores is somewhere within that same range, because most schools want you to fall within that range. You can take practice exams, whether on your own or as part of an LSAT prep course, that'll help you gauge, where am I starting off? You know, what's my baseline? And then from there, you can move and work from your baseline to hopefully fall within the ideal range for the school or schools you're applying to.
Looks like no other questions in the chat at the moment.
Any final words of wisdom, Jasana? This has been wonderful.
I would say thank you all for having me. Also, it sounds like there were a lot of really great questions, and I really appreciated them. I think the only thing that I would add is start early and start thinking about your decision. Oh, and I just got a question.
Yeah, I just got one. What was your biggest surprise in law school?
I think there were two. I would say the workload. I was really surprised to get to law school, even as a pre-law major. I was like, oh my gosh, this is a whole different, it was a whole different experience. I talked about it before, but 12 credits in undergrad is not the same thing as 12 credits in law school, and the stakes are much higher. So it can be a lot of pressure. That was surprising to me, but with the mentors and the supports that I had in my life, I was able to do that and navigate that, develop as a professional, manage time management, organization, and really develop those skills. So it can be very surprising at first. A lot of people call your first year of law school, which is your 1L year, they call it like the ride of your life, right? Most people, lawyers or law students alike, would not be surprised to hear someone say that their 1L year is quite a ride. That was very surprising to me, and I don't know that there was anything that I could have done to really prepare other than being aware that your first year is going to be a challenge. And I think the other question, or the other area of surprise to me, was being away from home. So I made the decision to go to North Carolina, which I love and I'm thankful that I did. But being far from home was a shock, right? It's a shock because you're in new surroundings, you're learning new things, you're learning about the law, and it's a challenge. On that same regard though, I was surprised to know just how much experience I had coming into it. I was a pre-law student, so that meant that I had taken a lot of the substantive course areas. So I was surprised to see just how much preparation I got from that. But there were other students who did not have pre-law as their majors or as their concentrations, and they did just as well.
And it looks like another one came in, it's a two-parter. Do you have to go to law school full-time or can you do part-time?
You can do part-time, yep. You can do part-time. Some schools have a part-time day program, some only have a part-time evening program, depends on the school.
And then the second part was, do you recommend working while it's still in school? I assume law school.
Right. The ABA, to my recollection, has a rule that limits the amount that you can work in your first year of law school. And I want to say that it's 20 hours, unless the rule has changed. And what that says to me and what it really speaks to is you can, but just remember, this is going to be a heavy lift, right? Like, I did not work during law school. I was a full-time day student, and it was still a heavy lift, right? Like, I have a full course load of new topics that I've never encountered before. And I can't imagine what it would have been like for me to be working. But that's different for everyone. You know, you might be a student who's already accustomed to working full-time during the day and going to do classes online or doing an evening program. So a lot of it is dependent on who you are as a student and what you need to get out of your legal education, in addition to finishing your legal education and going on to your next steps.
And another one that just came in was, I'm just gonna read it. What do you do for juvenile law? My dream is to become a youth justice attorney, but he doesn't know where to get started.
Sure. So one of the best places that I found to find out more about juvenile law was I have a mentor who, down in North Carolina, she was a juvenile law attorney that represented children in their juvenile delinquency. So if they got into, say, criminal trouble, right? For juveniles, it's not called criminal law, it's juvenile delinquency court is where they're going. So that was what she did, and so I really connected to her, and I said, look, this is an area that I'm most interested in, can you help me get there? What does it look like to be a juvenile law attorney, or a youth justice attorney, as I think that you said? That was really helpful for me. But also, looking into the ABA, they have sections based on the practice areas. So if that's an area that you're already identifying that's interesting to you, in addition to getting maybe a mentor or a network built around that area, you could also go and look at those webinars, seminars on, you know, what does it mean to be in that field, and also make connections with people that are already in it.
And then it looks like this is the last one as of now. What are your thoughts on private sector versus public sector?
I think that it's a highly personal decision. And I don't mean to keep saying that to like deter anyone's questions, but there are some people that are in private practice that love it, and there are others that are not, and they love that too. So it's really dependent on what you're looking for out of your legal career, in the same way that it would be for other professions, right? Like, where am I at in life? Do I want to be in a courtroom all day? Do I want to have clients? Do I want to represent an agency? So I think that it depends on what you're most interested in.
And this will be the final question.
Okay.
What is your advice in asking someone to be a mentor?
Doing your research first, right? Like finding out about shared interests, right? So I knew that for me, my professors were in the pre-law or legal studies realm. So I knew that they had some encounter or some experience with the legal profession, that we had that in common. And so it started really organically in me saying to them, I know that you're in this profession. I know that you are an attorney. And I know, and I've identified that being an attorney is something that I want to do. How can I try to make that happen? I'm not really sure which way to go. Doing that was very helpful to me, because when you don't know what you don't know, it's hard to figure out where's the next place to go. So just utilizing the people that are around you, finding those shared interests, and saying to yourself, I'm just going to take a shot, right? Like, it can start as simple as an email, a phone call, or if you can see them in person, go see them in person and ask them, you know, can I take you out to coffee? Can I meet with you and pick your brain for maybe 30 minutes on a Friday afternoon or something, because I'm really interested in this, but I need your help. Good. All right, well, thank you guys so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much to Levy, for attending. I appreciate it so much. It's been a pleasure having you. Provided so much valuable information. If you have any questions, please reach out to us at careerdev@post.edu. We are the Center for Career Professional Development. We're more than happy to assist you. And Michael will put that email in the chat. But thank you very much for coming, everybody, and have a great afternoon.